for a long time, I used to think saying no was being mean. No, saying no
Mm,
ain't being mean. Saying no is you preserving yourself. Like, I can't stress
yeah.
myself thin. I can't burn myself out.
Hello, and welcome back to You Need a Counselor podcast. My name is Julie Johnson. I am the president and founder of Heart and Solutions Counseling Agency here in Iowa. We are doing in-person therapy sessions right now. We're also doing therapy in the schools in our local areas, as well as doing phone and counseling over the computer. So if you're interested in any of those, go ahead and give us a call.
And I'm Krista Brown. I am the Vice President of Heart and Solutions in charge of the Behavioral Health Department. So we work with kids ages 4 to 18 in their home, in our offices, in schools, or telehealth right now as well at all of those locations that Julie was talking about. And this is our podcast, You Need a Counselor. So we are designed for people curious about counseling that have barriers keeping them from experiencing the benefits of counseling. Our mission is to share stories about counseling, good, bad, and indifferent, and spread the message that everyone can benefit from mental health and behavioral health counseling services.
Yeah, so we post on Sunday nights. So I'm thinking about everybody who might be listening to this podcast on Sunday nights when I am putting away all of my laundry for the entire week. I don't put away laundry any other day of the week now. I put it away on Sunday night. I hope you guys are putting away laundry on Sunday night too, and then just don't even think about it for the rest of the week. And Chris and I are listening to the podcast on Sunday night as well, right there with you. That gives you the entire week to call your counselor, get scheduled with your counselor, or reach out to us. Even if you're in another state, we can help connect you with a counselor in your area code. So go ahead and take that time this week to get set up with a counselor if you heard something that you connect with today. Okay, so we are very excited today. We've got a very special guest. We've got Tenesha Gatson here joining us today. Hi, Tenesha.
Hi,
Hi, thank you for being here.
I'm Tenesha. I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois, but I reside
Oh,
here in Manchester, Iowa.
mhm.
And I'm really excited to be on you guys' podcast. I'm 44 years old. I'm a parent of three young adult sons. I currently go to counseling myself every week. I'm an advocate, believer of therapy and counseling myself for several reasons. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, we're so excited to have you here because she's not only a mom and a grandmom, but and a counseling advocate herself, but she also advocates for mental health counseling on our Heart and Solutions compliance board, and meets with us quarterly at our board meetings. And it's just been so awesome getting to know you and hearing your story and just hearing how passionate you are about mental health care and behavioral health care for people of all ages. I think it's just so important for the younger kids and also for us as adults. So, yeah, I just love that. And you've been in healthcare for a long time. You've worked in healthcare for 15 years as an administrator. Is that right?
yes, probably a little bit over that, but yes, I've really enjoyed it. But yeah, I have in an administrative capacity. Yes.
Awesome. And so you do a lot with daily affirmations. And you're I mean, we know because we meet with you on the board meetings, we know you're extremely positive person, an extremely positive person, but also that I think that like being a positive person can have a weird connotation sometimes, like, oh, are you ignoring the bad stuff? But for you, with you, Tenesha, like I feel like you have a very positive outcome or outlook, but it's also a very empowering outlook. And so it's positive. There is positive in everything, but you also are so empowering. Like, yes, there are challenges and we can overcome those challenges and continue to work on those daily with those positive affirmations. So yeah, I love that.
And I think that came from, for me, that come from struggle. I think from overcoming multiple different struggles from childhood to adulthood, even before becoming a parent. I think having those positive affirmations, even me posting on my social media daily or even just in my everyday life. I even have some posted like on my desk in my home. I post it for myself daily because sometimes even you need a constant reminder. Nobody wakes up happy every day.
Right.
It's certain things you deal with, especially as a parent, even with having adult kids. You have your own internal things you might deal with, and then like I said, I'm in counsel weekly, so I'm study pulling back layers from things. It's like, Lord knows, I wish I would have known about counseling. I wish I would have been introduced to counseling as a teenager, and I
Mm,
could have dealt with so many issues way before, into my adulthood. So it's just like, every day, every day it's a constant, you as you talk about certain things in counseling, you it takes you down memory lane. So you're talking about these things, you're dealing with these issues, so you constantly pulling back layers of issues that you haven't dealt with.
yeah,
So you
absolutely.
have to have that. I think you have to have that every day. And I think that's where my, the daily, positive outlooks come from, just telling you, take it one day at a time, not try to focus on, someone else's life. And even with social media, like it can be a gift and a curse. Like I always, you might, we connected on social media too. So
Mhm.
you guys might see, like, sometimes it could be a gift and a curse. It could be someone's happy place and it could be somebody's demise to a degree, because
Mhm.
if you believe so much of the things that you see, and not just focused on, what you're trying to achieve for yourself. Because I always tell people social media is just a highlight reel of someone's life.
Mm.
Mhm.
You don't really know what's going on in someone's day-to-day
Oh,
life.
yeah. Oh,
So
that's so
I
true.
always be mindful of that. It's just a highlight reel of what they want you to see. You don't see all the grit
That's
that goes
right.
behind that highlight reel.
I love that. So it makes me think about like the other day, and you guys are friends of mine on social media. And the other day, I think yesterday, I posted like a picture of making waffles with my kid, right? And it was like in the morning, right? And I'm posting this, and I was like, this is such a cute picture. Okay, but what you don't see is that like we didn't have breakfast food in the house for like the past week before that. And so like every morning I was like throwing granola bars at my kid, right? And so like here's an apple and a granola bar like for breakfast every single morning because she started preschool like 2 weeks ago. And so now it's like my routine's off because she doesn't eat lunch with me, she doesn't eat snack with me, right? And so like breakfast stuff, I was like, oh, that'll be great. We won't need to have so much breakfast stuff in the house. No, not true. Right. So, like, that whole week before that, like, the reason I made waffles and I made a ton of them was because, like, I need to have something that I can heat up quick in the morning. Right. And so what you don't see is like that entire week of me being like, I don't have any food in the house. Like I'm a horrible mom. Right. So I love that perspective on it. And what I also hear you saying and what I love is that you go to counseling weekly, but you don't lean on only that counseling weekly. That's 1 hour a week, but you are doing the work daily yourself. And I love that because I think that sometimes with counseling, there can be sometimes a temptation to say, well, that's my counseling time, right? Like that's my separate time that is for counseling and not applying it to our lives every single day the way that you are. I just love that because you're taking ownership of your counseling experience. You're saying, yeah, my counselor's gonna, work with me for an hour a week, but the rest of that week, it's me. That's me doing the work. And I love that. I also love what you said about peeling back layers. I think that is so important. That's like reminds me of Shrek, to be honest. Remember in Shrek when he says ogres are like onions? And
Yeah.
and Donkey says like, well, maybe they're like parfaits, and he's like, no, ogres are not like parfaits. They're like onions. I love that because I'd rather be an onion than a parfait, to be honest. And so I love that with that idea of like peeling back layers because I think that one thing that happens in counseling is that sometimes it can be so tempting to feel like I've been in counseling for 6 months and like I still feel the same, I still feel this way or I still feel this way. And what you're normalizing is just that like it takes time. You got to process through a lot of stuff before you get to that next layer of stuff you got to
and then
process.
and then you can just think about, just say, just for me personally, like I can have something that happened this week that could have triggered something from my past. Just say something that happened this week, because normally in counseling for me, we mostly talking about, oh, what happened this week or something, and something just, something that happened this week could have triggered something. It could have been from childhood or something previous relate, whatever from my past.
Yeah.
So that trigger for me this week could have conjured up so many other feelings or things that I haven't dealt with. So it's like you're not just dealing with what happened this week. It's like sometimes you're not even knowing, you're not over certain things, or you haven't
Yes.
even dealt with a certain thing. Like, wow, like I didn't even connect the dots to that.
Yeah.
Like
Oh
I
my
just
gosh.
I just had a recent experience where I had got angry with one of my kids, and it brought me back to a time where a horrific time in my life where I had to really like sit there like, as a parent, it's like you love your kids unconditionally, like at what point when it's parenting, like at what point when it's like kind of like when it is enough, like you go through so many layers of things. And for me personally in my life, like I've been through so many trials and tribulation as a single parent with my children. It's like I've been through, getting kicked out of places, not on my own accord, but because one of my children had me like kicked out of places. And it's like I literally didn't have like all of my things packed up in a minivan, didn't know where I was gonna go. Like family didn't have no family turned their back on me, all these things. And it's like I was in such an empty, dark place. And I was just telling my sister this like yesterday, right before this podcast. And it's like this one situation with another kid triggered me thinking back to this particular time. You see what I'm saying? Like one incident brought back a different time. So I'm just explaining to her, like I remember like driving toward I was on my way to Tupelo, Mississippi, like with a 3-bedroom townhouse I got kicked out of due to one of my children. So I'm driving, and in my head I'm like, where I'm gonna go, what I'm gonna do. Like just I was actually gone for a vacation and got called home saying that my child got me kicked out. So just
Wow.
imagine in 3 days my life got turned upside down. So
Uh-huh.
to keep me from getting an eviction on my record, I had to pack up my 3-bedroom townhouse, whatever I could, to move so I wouldn't get an eviction on my record. So you thinking like you had like this was not on you. You didn't do anything wrong. You paid your rent, you paid your bills, you did all the things you're supposed to do. And it's like now the kid who did this to me, I have to take him along with me because he's 6 weeks away from being 18 years old. But in the
Mhm.
state that I was living in, they say if you don't take him, we're gonna put a child neglect on your record. I don't have a record. What do you
Mhm.
mean? I took care of this kid my whole life. So
Uh-huh.
it's like, in this particular instance, it's like you in that particular time, I wasn't in a good place. I was just telling my sister, like, I was like, I'm driving across this Mississippi River, and I'm like, I was thinking about driving that minivan into the river. Like, I'm like, my thoughts went good.
Mm.
I remember pulling up into a gas station, and it was like a truck stop gas station, and I just wanted to be clean. I hadn't took a shower. I had been driving from Wisconsin all the way. I wasn't at Tupelo yet. I had been driving for hours. I was so sleepy. I felt like if I drive another further, I'm gonna drive us off the road. It was me and one of my younger children, and he wasn't younger, but he's a preteen at the time. So
Mhm.
I'm in this bathroom. I paid to take this shower. I was like, I'm just telling my sister, like, do you know how degrading this feels? Like, do you know? I said I felt like a movie I watched. I said, you don't know how degrading this feels because you never had to go through anything like this. But it just seemed like how one thing triggers something else. Like, and my sister was like, I had no idea. And I was like, I don't know what made like this particular argument trigger this old feeling. And I'm like, I said, so nobody has no idea. Like when you see somebody's social media and you see them smiling, like and then I explained to my sister, I said, yeah, Leah, like y'all see me with this weight and y'all say like, hey, you want to get healthy, you want me to lose weight. I said, behind this weight is so much pain. I've been through so much. I said, you guys have no idea. I
Mhm.
say it's not just weight. I say it's layers and layers of things. So that's
Mhm.
why I say, like, you have no idea sometimes what a person has been through when you see somebody. Like, you have no idea, like, a person's story or the different things that they've been through. Like, you see somebody smiling and you think, like, oh, they happy, life is
Mhm.
grand. And you have no idea, like, the different things and the different levels to what they've been to. But see, like, now I can look back at that time because I'm in this place. It's like I never thought during that moment that I would get to definitely this place.
Mhm.
That was such a dark place and a dark time at that time.
Mhm.
And that was how many years ago? My youngest was 15 and he's 22 now.
Okay.
So it
Mhm.
just to show you, like, with time, I always have a mindset that, like, storms don't last forever. Like, you're in this storm. Sometimes you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, but it's always going to be light. You just got to make it out of the storm.
Mhm.
Nobody knows how long that storm is going to last. It could last a year, 2 years, but you definitely going to make it out of the storm. You just got to weather the storm. It's how I feel, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. I love that. I feel like you shared so much there. I mean, I love how you talked about being in the storm and how even the people closest to us might not have any idea that we're in this storm. I mean, your sister was still your sister at that time, but she didn't know, she didn't understand. And it's not because she didn't want to. It's not because our support people don't want to support us, but it's just that these are such internal feelings, right? And
Mhm.
sometimes those feelings are so difficult to even put into words to try to
Mhm.
explain to another person. I mean, words are just pretty inadequate sometimes when it comes to this kind of experience and
Mhm.
emotion. And what I love about it is that, in that, gosh, 7 years, you have made a complete a change in your life is totally different. Like you said, like you couldn't imagine being where you are right now back then 7 years ago. And to be able to look back at that and say, I did that, I made that happen. And going to counseling and being able to see these things for what it is. I love that you were able this week then to say, okay, that argument or that situation that happened with that person, that was very, very triggering to me. And not necessarily because of the situation this week, but because it reminded me, it brought me back in my mind to those feelings and experiences before. And if you weren't in counseling to be able to see that for what it is, then what happens is that we get triggered, but we don't know that that's the reason. And then we take that feeling and we take it out on the other person that's involved this week, right? That's
Yep.
in this conversation, and they don't
Mhm.
deserve it. They have no idea.
Mhm.
But that's so tempting to do, and then we cause ourselves other problems, right? Like, man, why is everybody such a jerk, and why doesn't that person get where I'm coming from? And what I love about that is that you're going, nope, I have learned enough about myself. I have expressed enough to another person and to myself to be able to see that the situation that's happening this week is my feelings on it are not just because of the situation that's happening. It's all of these other things that I'm still processing through. And it's kind of a window into those layers that are a little bit deeper down. And even if in your counseling journey, you're not to those layers yet, like you still have those layers on top of layers on top of layers, that's okay. Because with an onion, I know I keep going back to the onion. My my Korean name is Eunyoung, and Krista and I had a coworker, Shelly, one time, and she used to call me Funyun because it's Eunyoung sounds like Funyun. So I like onions. And so when with an onion, though, if there's a like a bruise or a mark on the inside of the onion, that
Mhm.
comes through every single layer. When you cut
Mhm.
that open and you pull that off, you see that little mark on that onion there, even though
Mhm.
that it stemmed from the middle of it. And
Mhm.
I think that that is so interesting because what you're sharing about, this, that outside layer, this thing happened and I see this mark on it, but it's because of what's inside the onion. I think that is so awesome. And it also allows for like patience in the counseling process. Like
Yes.
that it's okay to be exactly where we are in our counseling process, and to know that like I still have layers that I am going to go through, and I will when it's time, when I'm ready to. But I also know that, gosh, I've gone through so many layers already. I love that. So tell me a little bit more about, so how long have you been doing your own individual counseling? Because one thing I know about you is you tell everybody that you talk to, right? Like, I am in counseling. Counseling is great. Do it as soon as possible.
My individual journey started in counseling when my son had his first suicide attempt. I reached out to counseling myself to deal with that situation because I needed an out. I don't care. I don't care if you have a partner or husband or best friend. I feel like you never tell anyone everything totally about yourself.
Okay.
I don't, I feel like you might have a best friend, you tell them your secrets, but I feel no one totally knows everything about you. And I feel like a counselor is somebody that's unbiased. They're logically thinking. So even when you are, it's somebody that you could talk to, you can express your thoughts, and they can give you a logical opinion while you're rambling whatever it is that you feel. You see what I'm saying? They can sum it up to you and come back to you with a logical answer. And sometimes it could have been something that you already thought, but now they bring it back to you in a way that it makes sense to you. So, and then also it just for me in the process since I've been doing it, it has greatly helped me to de-stress. And I know for me, and especially in the African American community, it's a big stigma with counseling. I feel like so many of our youth, especially the millennials and people like in my age group, I feel like a lot of people they self-medicate in so many different ways. That's the way they deal with their problems, and that's not dealing with the problem because you add more problems on top of a problem. And I know anyone that's close to me, whether you are a friend, family member, I always tell people you need counseling, you know. But people that's close to me, they rather call me like I'm the counselor. I'm not the, like I'm not the counselor. I'm always a really good friend. I'll listen, I'll give advice. I'm always very honest. I'm empathetic, but I'm honest. I'm not gonna sugarcoat anything. I'm not gonna lie to you about anything. I don't pacify anybody about anything because I feel that doesn't help you. I don't feel like I'm being a good friend if I'm pacifying you about something that needs help or attention.
Yeah.
Or if I see a pattern of behavior with someone. And I feel like if someone's close to me, you should do the same thing, you know. I just don't see anything wrong with it. Like I say, I'm a strong advocate for it. I think I will do counseling to the day I die. I don't
Me
think
too.
I don't
I
I
will
don't
too.
feel like life is never too grand to ever stop having a counselor. I'm never too happy where I don't need a counselor.
Yeah.
I um I just feel like it's something that I will always do and continue to do, and I will definitely continue to be an advocate for it. And um that's just kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah. I love what you shared about, when your son was making active suicide attempts, was having all of these suicidal thoughts, and had to be in the hospital, and came home, and then had, the outcome of that, those behaviors as well, that kind of, you had to relocate apartments, and you had to relocate homes, and all of that was happening. What I love about that is that sometimes as a parent, we can get so caught up in trying to help our children that we forget to take care of ourselves, and that we have needs in those moments too. And I think it's so tempting sometimes for parents to say, well, I maybe I'll get counseling later on, right? Like once my child's stuff is calmer, right? Like maybe I'll get counseling for myself. And the truth is, and I love what you're sharing and role modeling here, is that you needed to do that as a caretaker. That's something you needed to do at the time while it was happening, because it made you a better caretaker to be able to have that outlet, to have that, rational person. Where I'm the same way. When you were saying like a person that you can just like ramble to and say whatever comes into your mind, even though it doesn't make sense. And also, like, when you're talking to other people, sometimes you feel like, well, I should probably have a point or get to a point. I don't do that so much on the podcast, but in general, right? It's kind of like an expectation that, like, oh, Julie would get to the point. In counseling, there is no point. The point is to say whatever is rolling through your head in whatever way it comes out. And I love that. I love what you're sharing about that counselor being able to rationally just reflect back to you what you've said and what you've expressed. And sometimes, yeah, sometimes you're like, oh, yeah, I do think that. Or like, wait a minute, I did say that, but do I really believe that? Right? Or is that kind of something I just am thinking? And so I love that idea of the counselor being able to rationalize that. I also, what I love is that you are firm on your boundaries with people close to you, that like, I am a good friend. I am a supportive friend. I am an empathetic friend. I'm trustworthy, and I will tell you what I think. And I will give you my opinion, but I'm still not your counselor. And I love that, because we need both. We need supportive friends and family, and we need a counselor. And the two are not a replacement for the other, right? So my counselor is not a replacement for friends, and my friends are not a replacement for my counselor. They're two totally separate functions. And so I love that about what you're sharing.
Yeah, and what I tell my friends is, I said, like, you like to go get your hair done and your nails done, you know, it's self-care. You got to parent, you got to take care of your, like you go get your annual, exams. You got to take care of your mind.
That's right.
Your mind is taking care of yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a part of taking care of yourself. You need to better take care of your mind.
Wow.
If you're not clear functioning, clear thinking, how can you take care of those around you? You have to be clear functioning in your mind. You have to be able to think clear through your mind. It's so many things that go on throughout the day, like your life is just not your own. You have so many people around you that, I mean, I could plan out my week, but then I have all these distractions that could come my way. I have kids, I have grandkids. So I could plan my week to do A, B, C, D, but then I get a phone call. Somebody got a problem. This, that. So now here goes a boomerang into my plan. You know what I'm saying? So you have so many different distractions that could come, that could rock up and shake up your day. Like I get wake up to phone calls to all types of craziness. Even like this morning I did. You know what I'm saying? But if you're not able to know how to cope with different things, you got to be able to know how to cope. You can't let everything rattle you. And you can't do that without counseling. I don't care how logical of a person you think you are. Nobody's that logical. Nobody's that no nobody just can do that. You can't nobody can just take on, like all these different problems and think like you can just handle, like all these different things on your own that, people study throughout you. You can't I can't like I've learned a long time ago. I can't pile on my plate everybody's problems. I can't stretch myself too thin, because if I do all of that, what about me?
Mm-hmm.
If I stack my plate, who's gonna clear that plate?
Mm-hmm.
At some point, it's gonna be a burnout.
Yeah.
And if I burn out, who's gonna handle my business for me?
Mm-hmm.
That all these people coming at me with, so
Yeah.
no, like that's why even with me, like I said, I have to put boundaries. Yes, I love you, but
Mm.
my phone, I'm not answering after a certain time. Yes, I love you,
Yes.
but I know how to say no. I want to be a friend, and no, I can't do that. Can I have this? No, I'm not. I'm unavailable. Like you have to do it. And it's not. For a long time, I used to think saying no was being mean. No, saying no
Mm.
ain't being mean. Saying no is you preserving yourself. Like I can't stretch
Yeah.
myself thin. I can't burn myself out.
Yes. I love that. So I used to be a waitress, and I used to bartend. And sometimes if we were short staffed, there would be this like pressure feeling to like say there were a bunch of tables to clear, like to put that all on my tray, right? And like try to stack them all up and like bring them to the back. But like you topple a couple trays and you're done with that. Like you know how many you can put on that tray before it goes all to the ground. And now you're in a worse situation because now it takes more time to clean all of that up. It takes more time to figure out where you were and all of that. And so I love these boundaries that you have in place because you're able to say, okay, my plate is full. My bandwidth is full. I cannot do anything else. I need to devote the energy that I have to the things that I'm already committed to. And I can only do a good job on the things I'm already committed to if I say no to all the new shiny exciting little things that come because it's new, right? So it seems shinier. And I love that because no is a complete sentence. And there's a quote that I love and that we use at Heart and Solutions in the leadership team. We use it for to kind of help us with the auditing process because auditing is setting boundaries and maintaining boundaries. Mm-hmm. And the quote is, he who or she in my she who avoids conflict with others creates war in themselves. And that is so true for me. If I'm afraid to set boundaries with other people, if I'm afraid to say no, or to say something that somebody might not like, right? By expressing myself, if I'm afraid to do that and I'm avoiding conflict, then I create that war in myself. And then I am less useful to other people. Like you said, I can't care for other people because I am at war with myself. And so I love that analogy of like stacking your plate. You can't have that much on your plate, right? Because if we don't take care of ourselves, if we don't manage our own energy, commitments, time, nobody's going to do that for us. There is an infinite amount of things that other people want us to do. Infinite, right? And some of them we've agreed to do, and that's like, okay, that's my job, or I've scheduled that, or whatever. Mm-hmm. Yes, those things we've agreed to do, but other things that come to us, we get to say no to. And I love that. And it is so important. So I love that you're sharing that piece of it because, gosh, those boundaries are so important to our mental health and our well-being. I also love your analogy about getting our hair done or getting our nails done because, like, nobody bats an eye at that, right? It's like, hey, or sometimes actually the opposite happens with that. I feel like sometimes like budgeting gurus and financial people will be like, why are you spending this much on your hair? Why are you spending this much on your nails? And we're like, because it's important, right? Like we have to do that. And so because of what it does for us, right? Like I paint my nails every week with my daughter. I don't do it so that other people see my nails and think I'm cool. I do it because when I'm working out and I look at my nails and they're not done, I feel crappy, right? And if I look at my nails and they are done, I feel great. And so that's, internal motivation to do that stuff. And then this internal motivation too, to do counseling. And I think with counseling, it is that same thing. It's like, it's not like there's something wrong with my hair and that's why I need to get it done. Right. But my hair could be long or it could be short. It's fine either way, but I'm getting it maintained. Right. So that it is where I want it to be. And the same thing with my nails. Like there's nothing wrong with not painting your nails, right? But we're taking care of ourselves if that is important to us. And our mental health is so important, like training our brain every single week. And it's kind of like if you're running a marathon, each session, right, is a training session for the next week of things that, like you said, are going to pile up on us. Last week, Krista and I had this where we do our check-ins on Tuesday afternoons. And Tuesday afternoon, we were kind of like, stuff's going pretty good. Like this week's looking okay. And then boom, Thursday, Friday, everything explodes, right? And so it's those situations where we know that that stuff is going to come at us and we got to be ready. Like we have to be mentally prepared. We got to have the space in our mind. We got to have that right thinking going so that we can take on those things that come our way. So I love everything that you shared. I feel like your personal experience with that and just like developing those skills is so huge. Like that's so important. And you talked a little bit about the stigma. I think there's stigma in mental health in general, but you talked a little bit about the stigma in the African American community, especially, and with younger people and kind of with older people too. So, can you tell me a little bit more about what your experience is there with that stigma?
I think when it comes to mental health, people always think like, oh, they see somebody going to like a mental health office or a mental health clinic. Oh, such and such is crazy. Why are they crazy? Why would you say they crazy?
Mm-hmm.
Like that don't make them crazy. Where is you'll have somebody, like somebody that or a relative, they drowning themselves in booze or pills, self-medicating. They really have mental issues that they need to deal with, but they're self-medicating because just like you just said this slick comment to me that this person is crazy when they really need mental health services. You're talking to me and you need mental health services, like from a whole different perspective, but it's just the stigma on it. You have a lot of millennials who have dealt with mental abuse, physical abuse, people who've grew up with parents not in the home, parents that abuse drugs, just they dealt with domestic violence and different things like that, and just need, they just don't even know how to, just even properly deal with life in itself. So they medicate. You have a lot of people just get high, whether it's marijuana or they go to alcohol or other things that of their choice, which I do not condone, but that's what they choose to do. They could just really benefit from you know being able to cope, and there's so many different ways to cope. And a lot of people don't know how to do that. I always tell people I talk to, like try journaling. If you feel like initially, if it's someone you don't, like you can't trust to talk to, journal. And I always tell them like a therapist is a person you can talk to. You might not find the first one you comfortable with. Find one, keep going until you find one that you're comfortable with, that
Yeah.
you gel with, that's comfortable to you,
Mhm.
and you can talk to, and you feel comfortable with. And and just start from there. Start small. Ain't like you got to spill your guts the first visit. It's just getting comfortable. Start small. Until you feel like comfortable talking about whatever it is you need to talk about. And you build a relationship from there to your level of comfort. But it's all about your level of comfort and finding a proper person that works for you. Every person don't work for everyone. My therapist might not work for the next person. So you just finding that correct person to connect with that works for you, and getting the help and structure that you need to structure your life and be able to cope. Because
Yes.
at the end of the day, like I say, you see your therapist, whether it's 30 minutes or an hour out the week, whether it's once a week or twice a week, you still have to participate in your work. Because at the end of the day, it's about you. So you still
Yes.
have to be able to do the work. You're going to have to still do the work. You're going to
Mm.
have to go to places you don't want to go to. You're going to have to do the work.
I love that. It's kind of like, so if I see somebody go into the dentist office, for example, right, I don't say, well, they have gingivitis, right? Like I go, yeah, they're going into the dentist, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
it's silly to me, this but it's totally out there and true and so stigmatized that, if you see somebody going into the counseling office, that somebody might say, oh, that person's crazy because they're going into counseling. But if I see somebody go into the eye doctor, for example, I'm not like, oh, they have astigmatism. Like, I don't know. I don't know what they have. Maybe I have one, right? But that doesn't mean they have one. And so, I think this idea that, we only go to counseling if something is wrong, if something's really, really wrong, if something's wrong with us, it's out there and it's so prevalent, but it's so incorrect. And it stops so many people from getting the benefit of these services. And I also love what you're saying about, throughout the week, it's about us. It's our job. So even if we see our counselor once a week, twice a week, every other week, we still have the responsibility to take care of our mental health outside of session. And so it reminds me of, again, the dentist, because I go to the dentist every 6 months. They look at my teeth, they check and make sure if I have cavities or whatever, right? But I still have to brush my teeth every day, right? Like, I can't say, oh, well, I went to the dentist every 6 months, so I'm good, right? Like, I still have to brush my teeth every day, right? So it's still responsibility on us to be implementing those things that we're learning in counseling, that we're processing at counseling throughout the week. So I really, really love those analogies that you're highlighting for us. And I also loved what you said about being able to recognize coping with life. Like, life is a struggle. Like, life is challenging. I don't know anybody who doesn't have challenges in their lives. And like you said in the beginning of the podcast, we can't compare struggle. Like, we can't compare our challenges to somebody else's because we have no idea what theirs are. And sometimes we don't know what ours are. Like, we've experienced ours in a different way than somebody else might experience that exact same challenge that comes at us. And so what I love about that is this idea that we can learn through counseling to cope with the challenges that come to our lives, guaranteed. There's no way to stop them. We're going to have challenges in our lives. And so we can learn how to cope with those and deal with those in a way that doesn't cause us other problems. I belong to a 12-step program because my go-to for coping with not coping, right? Self-medicating, band-aiding, is to go to food. Like, food is my my thing, right? I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't drink anymore, right? I don't do any of that stuff anymore, but I go to food. Like, that's my go-to thing. And so learning how to cope with life without that is so difficult, but so necessary and important.
I used to have that. I
Yeah.
used to be like that. Yeah, because I felt like food was the only thing I can control in my life when everything in my life was so crazy. And that came from childhood. It felt like food was the only thing that I could control. I couldn't control nothing else in my life that was going wrong in my life or to me. But food, that's why I say, like, when I was saying it earlier, like, when people, like my sister, she's like a health nut now, so she always be like, trying to help me lose weight and different things like that. And I just say, like, weight is just, it's so hard. I've tried to lose weight in different things, and I was just saying, like, people just don't understand, like, losing weight is hard. And behind, like, it's not just, oh, losing weight or having a weight loss surgery. Like, sometimes when you see people with weight, it's something behind that weight. You don't know if they got a health problem. You don't know if they've been molested. You don't know if they've been through domestic violence. Like, you don't know what's the story behind the weight. Don't just always assume that, oh, they just eating and, they eat tons of food and they just don't want to lose weight. Like, it's not the case. Like, get to know the story behind the weight before you assume that a person just big and just don't want to lose weight, because that's not always the case. It's a reason for it, like, not to make excuses for it. Like, I done been on diets. I done lost 88 pounds and all these things. Like, I always hit like a plateau. But it's like, now I know how to cope in life, so I don't go to food. It's like, when I'm having issues in life, I find other ways to cope.
Yeah.
I write, I listen to music, I'll watch a movie if I'm feeling like stressed or something. Like I have other mechanisms of
Yeah.
coping. I don't use food to cope.
Mm.
So I've mastered that part of things. So I don't use food to cope anymore. I mean, it took a while to even recognize that. And then for the first step
Mhm.
to first of all dealing with it is to admitting it, and
Yeah.
then being able to cope with it and finding ways
Yeah.
and different. You need more than one way to cope with it. You can't just have a one thing to run to, because if that get boring to you, got to find
Mhm.
another way to cope with it.
Yeah.
Distract yourself. you know
Mhm.
it's the key.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Yeah, absolutely. It's, when we talk about self-medicating, like I get it. I totally understand it. And it is so hard to, face those problems with those healthy coping skills, instead of go to, those other things that are going to cause us more problems down the road. So, yeah, I love that. All right. So, if you could give one suggestion to somebody on the fence about starting counseling, what would that suggestion be?
Just try it.
Mm.
Just give it one try. Just try it. It never hurts to try anything. I always say try anything that's healthy for you. I ain't gonna say anything. Let me rephrase that. Try anything that's healthy for you once. You never know until you try it. So try it once. Don't go off anyone else's opinion about something. Try it once. I'll
Yeah,
say try once and make your own opinion about it first before you judge.
I love that. That's awesome advice. Very cool. All right. Well, thank you, Tanisha, so much for being here. This is wonderful.
I'm Tenesha Gatson, and I definitely need a counselor.
Awesome. Me too. And so does Krista. We both do. That is
Everyone should
awesome. Well,
consider it.
thank you so much for being here. It's been
No
wonderful
problem.
talking to you as always.
All right.
So, uh, if you are in the Iowa area and you are interested in signing up for counseling or in-home behavioral health counseling for children ages 4 to 18, give us a call. We're also doing in-office, in-school, and over the phone and over the computer counseling for anybody in Iowa, no matter where you're located. So give us a call, 800-531-4236 to get started with counseling at Heart and Solutions. If you're in another state or another service area, let us know because we can definitely get you signed up for a counselor in your area.
And like Julie mentioned at the beginning, we post every Sunday at 5 Central. So save up that laundry for the week, put your laundry away with us while you listen to our new episode, and get motivated to call a counselor this week.
Yeah. So you can always send us questions or connect with us on Facebook Messenger. You can send those to You Need a Counselor Podcast on Facebook, or you can send us a DM on Instagram at You Need a Counselor Podcast.
I'm Krista Brown.
And I'm Julie Johnson, and we need a counselor.
And so do you.
Bye.
Bye.